Hello, everybody. Welcome back. This is Dark Tower YouTube. We're continuing our series on the Man in Black, also known as, is what we've been calling this. And we're asking the question, who is the Man in Black? Who isn't the Man in Black? What names does he go by? Who is he? Like, what is his job? What is he kind of doing out there under these different aliases? And it's become our longest running series. Now, we haven't been doing this very long, but we're on part 4 or 5. It's
One of
a
those,
lot
yeah.
of parts because it's a lot of information, and a lot of the information we've seen so far, if you've been following us, contradicts each other and brings up new things to explore. So we've been going through book by book and seeing what did King say, what do the characters say, pulling out different excerpts and reading through and then analyzing to see what can we learn about this man, our favorite villain in the Dark Tower series, as well as some of Stephen King's other books, which makes him a fun person to explore. Today we're going to try to get through Through the Keyhole and Wolves of the Kala, and then we'll see where we're at, but probably just those two books. We'll be looking through what we know, what we are told about the Man in Black. Ash, the wonderful, talented, smart Ash, who is with it, with all things Dark Tower, is with me here again. How are you doing today? You ready to tackle this guy again?
I'm so ready, always ready to tackle the Man in Black.
I mean, to be honest, like, I'm getting a little weary because it's been going for so long. I'm like, oh, this guy again? Damn, he's got a lot going on, doesn't he? Way more than I at first expected, but I'm ready to, and we do have a lot to talk about, so we will jump right in. Let me say before that there are spoilers here for the entire series. If you didn't figure that out already, turn this off if you have not read all 8 books of the Dark Tower series, including Through the Keyhole, because we're going to be looking at that next. And I don't think did I introduce myself? My name's Michelle McEwen. I'm your host. I don't think I did. I forget to do that sometimes. This is Dark Tower YouTube, where we're taking a deep psychological dive into the magic, the mystery, and the metaphysics of Stephen King's magnum opus, The Dark Tower. But you all knew that. You knew that. I didn't have to say that. You know what you're doing here. My Dark Tower friends, you're here for the good stuff. So let's talk about the good stuff. The Through the Keyhole. Now, this is what Stephen King calls book 4.5. And it was written technically after the series was finished. There were 7 books in the Dark Tower, and now there's 8 if we include this one, which you have to include this one. I think it's integral to the entire series. Yeah. We're placing it in its 4.5 slot here. So the events happening chronologically between the Wastelands and the Wizard in Glass and Wolves of the Kala, books 4 and 5. And that's what's going on in this story. Now, I was like, oh, there's not that much in there. Like, we know that the Covenant Man is the Man in Black, but there's actually kind of a lot in there about who he is and how King describes him. So we're going to take you through bit by bit, looking at what we're told about him in this book. King tells us right off the bat, doesn't he, Ash?
Yes.
What we're going to get here. So what does he say when we open up this book?
Yes, so this is in the foreword of Through the Keyhole. King writes about Roland. He killed his mother, who was having an affair, mostly against her will, and certainly against her better judgment, with a fellow you will meet in these pages.
So there it is. But do you always read the foreword of a book?
Not always. I feel like with this series specifically, though, the forewords and afterwords are so important.
Yeah. I am one who might skip it, especially if I just want to get right into it. I don't remember if I read this the first time, but he tells you right there who we're going to see in these pages. But if you missed it, if you're one of those people that wants to get to the good part, you might have missed that. And then we're delighted to kind of start putting puzzle pieces together as we're being told about the Covenant Man in the story within a story This is so interesting because the Gunslinger kind of did that, right? The story within the story within the story. And the Wind Through the Keyhole is also like we're with the god Ted, and then we're in the Wind Through the Keyhole, and then we're also in Roland's flashback, and then Wind Through the Keyhole is how it goes, I think, or maybe the other way around. But King likes to do that. I think it's fun and keeps things interesting. And someday we're going to get to the Wind Through the Keyhole in the series and analyze it. I can't wait because people dismiss this book all the time. They're like, it's nice and it's a fun little adventure, but you don't have to read it. And I'm like, yes, you do. Yes, you do have to read it. And I'll tell you why. But not today. Today we're just going to talk about the Man in Black in the Wind Through the Keyhole. All right. So we're going to talk about the main character of the fairy tale within the bigger story, which is about Tim and his mother, Nell. At this point, his stepdad, Big Kells, has killed his father. We learned that this was a murder. And the Covenant Man is the guy who comes and collects taxes. Yeah. Every year. And everybody kind of lives in fear of this guy because he takes their money, but he's also kind of just a scary dude. We get a foreboding sense of he's not just your regular evil tax collector. He's a special breed of evil. Mm-hmm. All right, so let's jump into it. This is when the Covenant Man approaches Tim and his mom and his stepdad. And just when it seemed he might not come after all, the barony Covenanter blew into the village of Tree in one of those cold winds, astride his tall black horse and thin as scrawny death. His heavy black cloak flapped around him like a bat wing. Beneath his wide hat, as black as his cloak, the pale lamp of his face turned ceaselessly from side to side, making a new fence here, a cow or three added to a herd there. And we're going to jump around a little bit. We're not going to read the whole thing to you, but he gets up to our little crowd of characters, and King writes, "Then the barony Covenanter bent forward, regarding Kells with wide dark eyes that did not seem to blink. His lips, Tim saw, were as a woman's when she paints them with fresh madder." Okay, so we're going to pause there. We're going to go more into that scene, but let's pause and see what we've learned so far. What did you pull out here that tells us this is the Man in Black?
Well, I mean, the most obvious is this is a man in black. Like, he's got the black cloak and hat, and is very pale, which we also have had that description repeatedly for the Man in Black.
Yes, and the woman's lips, I can't remember where it came from, but that description specifically being applied, it might have been in Wizard and Glass, but specifically applied. Go ahead. You think you remember?
I think it was either in Wizard and Glass or when he met the TikTok man at the end of the Wastelands, but his lips were referred to as sensual. So. Mm-hmm.
Right. So King is just hinting us in again. If we didn't read the foreword or just weren't paying attention and going, oh, that's who this is going to be. Now he's dropping hint after hint here that this is the same person. And the Man in Black says, "Kells, isn't it?" He had a rough, husky voice that made Tim's skin pucker into hard points of goose flesh. We've heard about this creepy voice before, haven't we?
Yes. We've heard it described as penetrating a couple times. We've also heard whispery and hissing. So I'll just sort of like Tim, it's supposed to just kind of like creep you out and just give you goosebumps.
Yeah, so it's kind of the visual image of this man, and then the way he's talking is also cluing us into this is a bad dude, and perhaps not of the human variety. Mm-hmm. Do you want to read the next part?
Sure. So King writes, Kel's eye. His steppapa's voice was shakily cheerful. He managed to raise his eyes again. Welcome, Cy. Long days and pleasant. Yar, all that, the Covenant man said with a dismissive wave of one hand. His dark eyes were now looking over Kel's shoulder. And Ross, isn't it? Now 2 instead of 3, they tell me, Big Ross having fallen to unfortunate happenstance. His voice was low, little more than a monotone. Like listening to a deaf man trying to sing a lullaby, Tim thought.
Something that struck me here was that dismissiveness when Big Kells is trying to do the formal thing that we've seen over and over again in this series is this is how you talk to each other. There is a ritual involved in the greeting of somebody, and you would expect that a person in the role of the tax collector would engage in these formalities or expect to be engaged in these formalities. But this man wants nothing to do with that.
No.
He interrupts Big Kells and he's like, we're not doing that. I heard this is the gossip, and he knows exactly what happened, but he just plays coy like, oh, something unfortunate I heard. He knows everything that's going on here, but like, this is why this man is here. Like the tax collecting, that's just his front, right? He's here for the gossip and to start messing with people's lives. And that voice again, we're just told, is just super like a deaf man trying to sing a lullaby. Maybe a little insensitive to deaf people, I don't know, King, but it's getting the point across to us that, again, we're just feeling like there's not, this is not a very melodic musical voice. We're feeling unsteady in its presence.
And almost...
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, repeatedly we've been told that the man in black at least appears to be sort of half human. And so it feels like almost like trying to mimic that human like quality, regardless of if he is like fully human or not. He clearly has something deeply wrong with him psychologically that he cannot like actually connect with people, but he's trying to do that here, and it just like sets everyone on edge because there's something off about it.
Yeah, right. Good point. He tries, but he doesn't quite know how to do it. Or maybe he's doing it on purpose. With this man, you just never...
Definitely. Very much. Ever the trickster.
That's right. He wants people to be on edge, perhaps. So it's hard to say there, but for sure it's a thing that we've been told about time and time again with this man. It turns out they owe 9 knuckles of silver, which is delightful, and the Covenant man makes Tim bring it to him, which is, we're reading this and we're like, oh no, I don't like this. And he's like, no, the boy's gonna bring it to me. Y'all stay there, and he's coming over here. This is the big bad wolf in a fairy tale, so we are not liking that. And then it plays out. So Tim brings it over and then very quickly is snatched up onto the horse, which as a mother watching this, you're going to just about die in that moment. And he's kind of whispering to Tim, what do you think about your stepdad? So again, like that gossipy, like, what do you think? And Tim tells the Covenant man, he beats my mom. Like he's going to say that out loud because this is a terrible thing. And nobody's talking to him about this. Nobody's talking to poor little Tim about his mom getting beaten. And then the Covenant man gives Tim a key. And King writes, "'Tis a magic key. It will open anything, but only a single time. After that, 'tis as useless as dirt. So be careful how you use it." He laughed as if this were the funniest joke he had ever heard. His breath made Tim's stomach churn. Anything you notice there?
Well, of course, the laughter being something of note, like this is our Man in Black's calling card is his, tittering laugh. So that is definitely another hint. I also think this isn't necessarily a hint as much as maybe just like a little connection, but the fact that he has this magic key, we have seen throughout the series that the Man in Black is a master of like doors between worlds. So I just find that like an interesting little, maybe, I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, the symbolism of that he is a man who can open all kinds of doors. And we're going to see that in a little bit, that we just more information about what is this guy up to when he's not collecting taxes. I find the breath is also interesting. So we're just adding another sense into it. We're now smelling this man as well. And he smells really bad. And like worse than a human might smell, perhaps.
Yeah. Or it could just be a sign of like how ancient he is, because this man is, I mean, essentially timeless and, throughout the series. So it could be relating to that as well, because I don't think it's till the last book, but we do also get something about Roland's 1,000-year-old breath. So that could be a little bit of a mirroring in that like timeless, ancient sort of thing.
Yeah, that's a nice catch there, where we do get when Roland kisses Susanna, we get an idea about how that breath is not baby's breath, whispers of angels and unicorns. There's some deep, dark dust in that breath. So I like that idea a lot. All right, do you want to read the next part from this scene?
Okay, so we get... "What are you telling my son?" Nell screamed from the front porch. "Pour not poison in his ears, devil." "Pay her no mind, young Tim. She'll know soon enough. She'll know much, but see little." He snickered. His teeth were very large and very white. "A riddle for you. Can you solve it? No?"
It's just fucking mean.
Yeah.
It's so mean. Like when you read this book, his mother is beaten until she's blinded from the injury. And this guy thinks that's hilarious.
Yeah. It's gross.
It's sick.
Yeah. But he really enjoys playing around like that. He thinks that like sort of everything is a joke. He doesn't really take much seriously.
Yeah, that's his calling card. It's all for his amusement. The pain and suffering of others does not concern him, except like how he can exploit it, or how he can manipulate it for his own entertainment, or to get something out of it. And then just turning it into a riddle. It's just mean. He's a meanie. He's a meanie. He's snickering again. So this is, probably by this point, everybody should be like, oh, I think this is the Man in Black.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I agree. And I also, I forgot to bring this up at closer to the beginning, but with the gossip, I find it interesting because, like, story-wise, we're just, if you're reading this chronologically, we just ended Wizard and Glass, which, like, the grapefruit is sort of a way to, like, see all of the worst things happening in the world, kind of. So that might be a hint that he's using it in order to get that information.
Right. That's a good point. So
yeah, it's never said, like, explicitly or anything, but we know that he has had access to it before, so...
That's right. And chronologically, it makes sense. And we would ask ourselves the question, how does he know that? And we find out that he knew where the body was. But then how did he know who killed him and what went down? How could he possibly know that, except he has some kind of extra physical ability? And could that be through the grapefruit or some other means of
Mm-hmm.
psychic spying, probably. The basin, I mean, in this story is
Yeah.
part of that gig, but that's on brand for this man. And Tim agrees with us. King writes, "He's playing with me," Tim thought. "I'm just a bit of amusement on a dreary day in a dreary town he'll soon leave behind. But he breaks his toys. You only have to look at his smile to know that." Tim is smart.
Very
He's a
smart.
smarty. He knows what's going on already and that this is not good.
Right. Yeah, he's
Not
definitely
good.
got that sort of like boyish intuition that Jake also has.
Right, and we do find out later, which we don't go into in this episode, but he's a gunslinger, just like the rest of our characters
Mm-hmm.
are. But to have some sort of extra physical ability to pick up on the situation, the people involved, the conversations, what's going on underneath, he knows. He
Mm-hmm.
knows what's happening. And next, do you want to read what happens when Tim's mom is remembering when the Covenant man used to come around when she was a girl?
Yeah. His white face gave me nightmares. It's so long. And do you know what, Tim? He shook his head slowly from side to side. He even carries the same silver basin roped on behind, for I saw it then too. That's 20 years agone. Aye, 20 and a double-ton doocy more. But he looks the same. He hasn't aged a day.
Aha, the plot thickens. We did a whole episode about who is the ageless stranger, and I'm saying it's Roland, but also we had an episode about how Roland and the Man in Black are split sides of the coin, shadow sides of each other. And so to say they're both kind of the ageless stranger, we could make a case for that. This feels like on track with all of those theories. Do you think?
Yes, I agree. I do think that this was King throwing in another hint about the ageless stranger. And even, regardless of if you subscribe to that theory or not, we know that, like, canonically, this character is hundreds or thousands of years old. So it makes sense that he would appear ageless because he's got the glamour kind of magic where he can change or fix his appearance.
That's right. And we also know that he is cycling with Roland.
Mm-hmm.
And so however many cycles we've gone through, he's gone through that many
Yes.
as well. And then lived other lives in other levels of the tower for how many years. And he's just...
Yeah. And we also don't know really, I mean, we have some background, like with the Eyes of the Dragon. We know a little bit of what he was doing before he came into Gilead's court, I guess, but he was already an adult. Like, we don't know all of the things that were going on before then.
Yeah, and we get some information in a little bit about, so we're going to pull that out because just some background on what he was doing before we encountered him in the Gunslinger. So that's a cool part of this story, but we're not there yet. So let's get there. All right. So we learned that he knows the Monty folk. So that's I was going to say cult, but maybe that's too mean. Religious group, spiritual community. Who abides in Midworld, and he has spent time in Garland, and this is where the silver basin is from. And Ash was just talking about the Eyes of the Dragon. If you've read that, Garland is the kingdom that is the main place in the Eyes of the Dragon, and Flag, this man, shows up as Flag in that story. So we're just giving a little shout out to... That's him. He was there. And that happened somewhere else, too. I can't remember where, but we know that's him. Also, he shows Tim that his magic wand is the gear shift of a Dodge Dart, America's economy car. So that's funny.
Mm-hmm.
So what are we pulling away from those bits of information?
Well, I think that the wand both shows that he has access to other levels of the tower and other timelines. It also just points back to his, like, he thinks everything's a joke. He thinks it's hilarious that he's using a gear shift, that nobody in this world knows what it is. He loves inside jokes with himself, I think, and also sort of with the reader. I know that's getting a little bit meta, but it does feel like he enjoys playing maybe with the reader in terms of like you've said over and over that this is a story about stories, and it does feel like a lot of his jokes like are for the audience specifically and no one else. And this is another one of those.
Right. It does make us giggle.
Mm-hmm.
Like the Man in Black giggles when we say a Dodge Dart. What the hell? This is a magician who can go anywhere, anytime in history, and pick up the gear shift of a Rolls Royce or a Lamborghini or something if he wanted to. The most expensive car ever in the history of the United States. No. Mm-mm. Because that's not funny.
Right. And also, like, why would he use a normal wand that anybody could get in this world? He wants one that nobody else can get.
That's right. And nobody else understands. And he's just fine with that. So we did talk in another episode, I can't remember which one now, about how because he is a man that is having to repeat the cycle with Roland over and over and over again, entertaining himself is a way to perhaps remain sane. And it's not working super well, but it is a way to maybe keep him grounded and like in reality somehow.
Yeah, for sure. Because, I mean, if you're stuck in this time loop and you are aware of it, that is like an extra dimension to this like nightmare. So you have to start having fun somewhere with it, I guess.
Totally. That fits. All right. So next, he is telling Tim about hearing rumors of a dragon in the forest that killed a man. He admits his curiosity was aroused. King writes, "It was curiosity for its own sake, because wanting to know secrets has always been my besetting vice. Someday 'twill be the death of me, I have no doubt." What do we think about that?
I mean, major foreshadowing, obviously. Major foreshadowing.
It's such a fun thing for King to put in there for us, the reader, who has finished all 7 of the Dark Tower series, and now we're reading this one 6 years later, something like that, after the end of the Dark Tower. And we go, yeah. Actually, that's exactly what happened to him with little Mordred, little baby Mordred.
Yep. And it seems also like he's kind of cool with it. Like he's made his peace that that's going to be his demise one day.
Yeah. It's not going to stop him. All right. So he tells Tim, go dump out the water. Tim is... The Man in Black knows where Tim's dead father's body is. And he's trying to get Tim to dump the pitcher of the basin of water in that particular spot. But it's spooky. And there's a big pooky snake that's hanging around. And we're in the deep, dark forest here. And so rightfully, Tim is like, How about I just dump it right here?
Right.
Why do I have to go over there? And he also wants to go back to his mom because he saw in the reflection that his mom's getting beat up real bad again. And he feels like, I need to be there to help her. I need to go home. But he's kind of trapped now. So do you want to read the next part?
Yeah. So Tim says, "Can't you just dump it yourself? I want to go to my mother. I need to. Your mother isn't why I brought you here, young Tim." The Covenant man seemed to grow taller. "Now do as I say."
This is striking because we said that Tim is a gunslinger. I think this is the first inkling of this little boy who, he's not I forget how old he is, but he's Jake's age-ish, between 9, 10, 11, something like that. And he went out into the forest by himself and is hanging out with this evil, black cloaked, smells of death, creepy voice man. And he is not playing ball.
Yeah.
He's like, no, I'm not doing that. And the man in black has to change shape here.
Mm-hmm.
He has to show some of his magic to regain control of the situation, because Tim is not just a pushover who's going to do whatever he says. And so that idea of he seemed to grow taller. Oh, he did, or there was some kind of illusion of that for sure to intimidate Tim into doing what he wants him to do. Also, what do you think about your mother isn't why I brought you here?
Yeah, I mean, we find out that he had already known about Tim's father and where he was and everything, so he doesn't really care what happens to his mom, at all. That's neither here nor there for him. He's like, yeah, she's being beaten right now, she's gonna go blind, but that's not important. What's important is you dumping out this basin. I do also find it interesting that he uses magic to grow taller, or seem to grow taller, because in Wizard and Glass, we hear that as he's rapidly shape-shifting, he stays the same height. So I do wonder if it's if he can change height, but it just takes more energy or something. And so when he's rapidly changing, maybe that's why he stays the same height, is because that would just take more energy. I don't know. We're not told, but it's interesting that sort of tell of him being the same height is different here.
Yeah, I noticed that too, and wasn't quite sure what to make of it, but he can do it.
Mm-hmm.
Or he can look like he's doing it, whether he's doing it actually physically changing or just making that appear. It doesn't, it's the same difference to somebody who's seeing it. And so it makes us rethink everything that we've been told in terms of well, he can't do that. Well, yes, he can.
Yeah.
And so where was he doing that where you just weren't aware of it?
Mm-hmm. Yes. It's very, very interesting. Just a lot of little hints about his magic from King.
And I think we need to bookmark that idea when we're talking about, there's a whole theory out there about Farson being John F. Kennedy kind of come through the door of death into Midworld, and what that relationship is with the Man in Black. We've been trying to figure out, and it's very unclear, but in Wizard and Glass, just on this point, talking about how, Farson, nobody's ever seen Farson, which I think is a big hint right there. Nobody's ever seen him except far away, very briefly. Was that even him, we asked? We just don't know. But if it was actually him, he was a tall man. And everyone's like, well, it's not the Man in Black, because they said, is it him in disguise? No, because he's always this. But now we're like, oh, but actually he can look bigger if you want to. So is that a hint about Farson?
Yeah, it very well could be.
I'm going to remember to put that in. That'll be an episode coming to a theater near you in the next 6 months to 6 years, depending on how long it takes us to get through this series. All right. I can't wait to do that one, though. That one's fun. All right, so where are we? Okay, now let's move to the Widow Smack, which is just a wonderful name for a character in a fairy tale. She saves Tim's mom. She's taking care of Tim's mom. She's a good guy. She is gonna tell Tim what she knows about the Covenant Man. So this is it's a little long, but we're gonna read it all because there's a lot of things in here that we're gonna pick out when I'm done reading. All right, so this is the Widow's Smack. King writes, I determined to find out what I could. I wrote a letter to a great lady I knew long ago in Gilead, a woman of discretion as well as beauty, a rare combination, and paid good silver for a messenger to take it and bring a reply, which my correspondent in the great city begged me to burn. She said that when Gilead's Covenant Man is not at his hobby of collecting taxes, a job that comes down to licking the tears from the faces of poor working folk, he's an advisor to the palace lords who call themselves the Council of Eld, although it's only themselves who claim they have any blood connection to the old. 'Tis said he's a great mage, and there may be at least some truth in that, for you've seen his magic at work. So I have, Tim said, thinking of the basin, and of the way Cy Covenant Man seemed to grow taller when he was wroth. My correspondent said there are even some who claim he's Merlin, he who was a court mage to Arthur Eld himself, for Merlin was said to be eternal, a creature who lives backward in time. From behind the veil came a snorting sound. Just thinking of it makes my head hurt, for such an idea makes no earthly sense. But Merlin was a white magician, or so the stories do say. Those who claim the Covenant Man's Merlin in disguise say he was turned evil by the glam of the wizard's rainbow, for he was given the keeping of it in the days before the Elden Kingdom fell. Others say that, during his wanderings after the fall, he discovered certain artifacts of the old people, became fascinated by them, and was blackened by them to the bottom of his soul. This happened in the Endless Forest, they say, where he still keeps a magic house where time stands still. Seems unlikely, Tim said, although he was fascinated by the idea of a magic house where clock hands never moved and sand never fell in the glass. Bullshit is what it is. And noting his shocked look, cry your pardon, but sometimes only vulgarity will serve. Even Merlin couldn't be two places at the same time, mooning around the endless forest at one end of the northern barony, and serving the lords and gunslingers of Gilead at the other. Nay, the taxman's no Merlin, but he is a magician, a black one. So said the lady I once taught, and so I believe. That's why you must never go near him again. Any good he offers to do you will be alive. All right, there's so many things in there.
There's so many things.
Pull them out. So what do you want to start with?
Well, first there's the connection to Gilead. Obviously, Martin is Stephen Deschain's advisor when in like the series proper. So him having a connection there is another hint, especially like the advisor to the Council of Eld.
I want to say, or maybe I'll ask you if you remember when this, because I feel like the fairy tale of Wind Through the Keyhole is supposed to be set in the Once Upon a Bye.
Yes.
And so when I was reading this, I was reading it like the Council of Eld was maybe what Stephen Deschain's dudes are calling each other, but we've never heard that before.
No.
This, right?
We have not heard it, but it does. I mean, she says that they're like the only people who believe they have any blood connection to the old, meaning blood connection to Arthur Eld, and we know that that is sort of what gives the gunslingers their authority. So regardless of if it is like actually at the same time as Stephen Deschain and his group, it is probably whatever group of gunslingers is there at the time.
For sure. That's a solid link there. So it makes us wonder if it, you know, Martin at court, if it is the same time, is also off being the Covenant man in the village of Tree when he's not he's not in the court. This guy is just all over the place. He just gets around and does every role and does anything he wants to do. Next, we have the idea of he's a great mage. And this brings up the comparison to Merlin, which we've looked at multiple times already throughout this series about the Man in Black. I think it's a good way to kind of suss out what's really gone on here. So we kind of have this idea of like, well, it makes sense that a magician working in the court of Gilead, or what was it called? The Council of Eld. There's Merlin, who was or is the good magician, and then we have this bad magician. So there's two of them. So to get those two guys mixed up, it would be easy to do, especially if we're talking about this was a long time ago and we're not sure anymore, right?
Yeah. Yes. And I also think going back to the gunslinger, when Jake asks if the Man in Black is a bad man, and Roland says it depends on where you're standing, I think is what he said. He doesn't necessarily always do only evil things. So it would make sense to confuse the two as being like a good wizard and a bad wizard just based on your interactions with this guy and what he is doing.
Yeah, that's a good point. Because if you have heard stories, you've heard good stories and bad stories about him. But it wasn't the same dude, but I didn't know that. I'm just listening to the rumors and gossip and tales handed down through generations. So I don't know what's going on.
It is interesting that there are rumors about Merlin himself turning evil with the Wizard's Rainbow. I find that interesting, especially because, like, as we get further into the series, it's clear that King changed his mind about the role of Merlin and just kind of his alignment, because at the beginning he was like one of the main baddies, you know, connected to the Dark Tower that Roland was going to have to go through, and at this point now he's sort of like a good guy that's sort of like this legendary wizard.
Right, that's a great point. And we looked at that when we originally started this series. We just did unrevised and revised Gunslinger, and the massive differences between those, if you guys remember that, and just saying like, what is his name, the Ageless Stranger? And at first it was Merlin. Well, he was framed as a good person to kind of know, and that name is brought up again before King had changed his mind. We've seen it happen. We've also seen at this point Flag saying, oh yeah, like I get around, and yeah, Martin, Walter, Flag fan, whatever. But like, there's some who called me Marilyn, but I was never
Yeah.
that one. So Flag himself has denied being that person, and we know that at this point. But it's interesting to see how that rumor theory could have emerged, and that King has definitely decided. I mean, because this is after he wrote the whole series, but he's gonna. I love how it's like a Marilyn redemption story, actually. And by the end of book 8, we see he never was Marilyn, because Marilyn is definitely one of the good guys. See him in action in this story, so that's a nice distinction of like, at this point we kind of were like, well, it is Marilyn also the Man in Black, and we had the Man in Black saying no, I wasn't, but we can't trust him, or can we? It depends on where you're standing, but King is just being like, no, he is not. These are not the same person. So there's one clear answer that we have at the end of all of this analyzing. Okay, so so Marilyn, those who claim the Covenant Man is Marilyn in disguise. And I wonder, could that be, because we know that we were just talking about this, like the Man in Black did have the wizard's rainbow and had hold of that. So could this be just another mixed messages or mixed information about who was doing what, which wizard was doing what when? And we just got the stories a little backwards, perhaps.
Yeah, and I mean, it's especially hard when the man that we are trying to dissect and pin down can change his face. So we're like, he could borrow the face of Marilyn sometimes, even though he's not Marilyn, just to confuse people, because that is like his favorite thing to do. But yeah, regardless, King's like pretty firm at this point that Marilyn and the Man in Black are not the same.
Totally. I also love, others say, so this is all very rumor gossipy too, he discovered certain artifacts of the old people that blackened him to the bottom of his soul. Like, what did he find?
A gear shift.
What did he find? The Dodge Dart gear shift.
Yeah, I mean,
we don't know.
If we go with that, it could be referring to like how to work the refinery in order to like use fuel to work those tankers or whatever, the oil tankers that we see in Wizard and Glass. But again, this is just a rumor. This is just gossip from random like villagers, and we don't know. We're basically playing like mid-world telephone. Like, we don't. This is all very grain of salt what she's saying.
That's right. And Tim again showing us he's very smart and he can work out. He's like, that doesn't sound right.
Right.
Which is, it's just kind of funny because he is going to meet Marilyn eventually. But the idea of the house, because he had a vision of this meeting in the basin, and it was at Marilyn's house. But that's not. He did meet Marilyn, but it didn't play out in that way. That reflection in the basin, which is very similar to the grapefruit, I think, and Roland kind of seeing something in the grapefruit and being like, oh yeah, like, got it, we're good. I feel confident in that vision. And that's not how things actually played out. So just that idea of like magic showing you something in a way that is true somehow a little bit, like there's truth in it, but not giving you the whole picture when it is black magic like this is, and like the grapefruit is.
100%. I also think this does say it's specifically referring to Marilyn as eternal and a creature who lives backward in time, and I do think that even though that is referring to Marilyn, it does also apply to the Man in Black. We do get that specifically, I believe, with the Ageless Stranger, at least in the I can't remember if it was the unrevised or the revised, but that backward in time phrasing.
I think it's the unrevised.
Yeah.
where we get more details about Marilyn that get cut from the revised.
Yeah.
But then King put it in here after the revised. So
Right. So I'm like, I mean, I think it's probably just another hint of like the ageless stranger.
yes, yes, and then the widow Smack also smart, and she's like, "That's bullshit. These are not the same person. The
Mm-hmm.
Covenant man is bad, and Marilyn's good." So, and that turns out to be true. So she knows what's up. She's
Mm-hmm.
got her little network of little birds, like in Game of Thrones, and she knows what's happening out there. Yeah, I think we're only going to get to the end of this book.
I know.
Not get to
I
the
didn't realize there was quite so much in here, but there's a lot.
a lot, which is delightful and
Yeah.
fun, and we hope y'all listening are into it because. And I hope y'all are like, comment if you're actually listening. What do you think? Or even if you don't, when you talk to other people about it, it just opens up other ideas.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah. It's
talk about the Dark Tower, everybody. It's fun.
so fun to dissect. There's so much to get from this series, and I think that the more you put into it, the more rewarding that will be.
And just, I say it all the time, but just Stephen King is a brilliant writer, period.
Mm-hmm.
Not a brilliant horror writer, not so good at sci-fi. No, like he is just an amazing writer.
Yeah.
Full stop. This is good stuff. All right, so back to the story where Tim finds the Dodge Dart gear shift, which was left for him along with a pail, which is not the silver basin. It's not, the Man in Black did not leave that for Tim, because I wouldn't leave that either
No.
if I were in possession of that. But it is some like strange metal that Tim can't identify. It's probably aluminum, I don't know, but he's like, I've never seen tin like this before. Maybe stainless steel, something that's shiny. And he knows how to do magic because he saw the Covenant man doing this. He's like, oh yeah, I know what to do with a basin and a Dodge Dart gear shift.
Mm-hmm.
I can do this. All right, so do you want to read the next excerpt?
Yeah. So King writes, he tried to remember if the Covenant man had made any particular series of passes over the water. Weren't mystic passes part of magic? And couldn't. All Tim could remember was the Man in Black telling him that if he disturbed the water, he would see nothing.
I feel like that is for all the dummies out there like me when I'm reading the Drawing of the Three and they're talking about the Man in Black, Johnny Cash, and I'm like, oh yeah, Johnny Cash. And it's like, no, the Man in Black, dummy. Like, that's a character in the story. And so here's Stephen King being like, okay, I just gave you every possible hint, every way I've described this man, the way he looks, sounds, smells, acts, what he likes, his jokes, his laugh. But if you didn't get it, here it is. Yes. The Man in Black. There it is.
Yeah.
So there we go.
And we do see King do that exact same thing when, like in Wizard and Glass, when Jonas meets him for the first time. Like, they have their whole entire scene, and then at the end of the scene, he's referred to as the Man in Black, like, in the text. So it's just a way to be like, hey, wake up. This is what's happening.
And I appreciate it. And I'll also say that if I wasn't paying attention, I might also miss it again.
Yeah.
I mean, so it's just really trying to make sure that you know who this is. He's trying his best and actually telling you, but still maybe some of you missed it. I probably did. So no shame there.
No, I don't think there's shame in missing any of this stuff because, like, again, this is such a dense work that nobody's gonna catch everything, especially not like the first or even second time they're reading, you know, like this is something that in order to get all of these nuances, you really have to like sit in it, which is why we're here.
Right. That's right. And it's so hard to unsee it once you see it, though, which I love too. But there's things that I've picked up on fourth, fifth, sixth readings of the series that I never noticed
Yeah.
the first few times I read it. And when I see it, I'm like, oh my God, like he just actually,
Yeah.
he just said it, like just calling the subtitle of the Gunslinger Resumption.
Mm-hmm.
It's like he just gave away the ending.
Yeah.
How did I read this and not stop and think and say, what do you mean resumption? Who's resuming what? Like
Right.
what?
I think that's sort of the point, though. I think King likes to play with his audience the way that the Man in Black sort of likes to play with his, is just like throwing in some hints and seeing what people get, and seeing sort of how those theories evolve throughout like the fan space. And I think that's another thing that's so like exciting about talking about this series with other people, is getting those different ideas and perspectives that you hadn't seen before.
Yeah, that's right. It's fun. There's lots of things. It's a treasure hunt every time.
Mm-hmm.
And I always find a new treasure, which is exciting and keeps me wanting to read it again and again and again. All right, so let's get back to our story where Tim goes through all kinds of exciting fairy tale-y adventures. He reaches the end of Midworld, where he finds a tiger, Tyger, in a cage, and a letter left by the Covenant Man, and he signs his letter, initials RF/MB.
Mm-hmm.
RF we're familiar with. Is MB Man in Black, or is it something else?
I think it could be, but I also believe, since we got the surname in Wizard and Glass, Martin Broadcloak is also, yeah. So I think that it probably refers to both, honestly. I think it's also like RF, where you've got Randall Flagg, Richard Fannin, you know, all of the other ones that are with each world that he wakes up in. He's like, this is close enough. So I think it's another, like, we don't know maybe all of the names that he goes by, but those are usually the initials.
I think it might. I'm just thinking about what we were talking about earlier and saying, like, did this happen where he's advising the Council of Eld now? Why else put those initials MB, Martin Broadcloak? Why would he do that? Like, why not just sign it the Covenant Man? Or why not just sign it RF? And then we're like, oh yeah, but like /MB. So why do that unless you're trying to tell us this is the same guy doing the same job? What do you think about that? Any other thoughts?
I agree. I think that is partially, I think it's King's hint to the reader. Like, yes, these are connected. These are the same guy, but we kind of already knew that. So I do wonder if it's, you know how a lot of serial killers end up getting caught because they want people to see how brilliant their work was? I think that it's sort of that same idea, is like, he wants people to know who he is because he's proud of what he's doing.
Yeah, I like that idea a lot, because he didn't need to sign it at all. Mm-hmm. But if he did, that choice is very specific and overdone.
Yes.
Extra, like, too much information.
Yeah.
You're blowing it, but I think you're right. That, like, look at me. Mm-hmm. Look what I did. We learned that our friend, the Crimson King, shows up, and he's the one who put Marilyn into the shape of the tiger and imprisoned him for all of those years. Tim thought that it was the Covenant Man, which is I think that's fair at this point in everything. And he's saying this the tiger is Marilyn and transforms into Marilyn. So now Tim is talking to Marilyn, formerly known as the tiger, saying, oh, I thought it was the Covenant Man who put that curse on you. And King writes, Marilyn threw back his head and laughed. His conical cap stayed on, which Tim thought magical in itself. Nay, not he. Little magic and long life's all he's capable of. No, Tim, there's one far greater than he of the broad cloak. When the Great One points his finger from where he bides, the broad cloak scurries. Anything you want to talk about there?
I mean, he of the broad cloak is sort of just another instance of King sort of just like beating the reader on the head with a stick, like, hey, this is the guy, this is Martin Broadcloak, is the Covenant Man. And then also Long Life is obviously going back to Ageless Stranger, and or again, if you don't subscribe to that, in general is just a very, very old guy.
Right, and he does magic, but it's not a big deal. It's a lot of show,
yes,
but not a lot behind it, and that's what we've seen pretty much. Like probably the most magic we've ever seen was the raising of Nort back in Tull.
Yes. In general, almost all of his magic use is glamour. It's changing his appearance and doing illusions, essentially. We also, see he's stuck in the loop. If he was not, if he was more magical, he could break himself out, but he's not. He's lower level, which again is kind of insane because he is powerful, especially by like our world's standards, of course, but if you're talking about the Crimson King or, Merlin himself or the magic of the Dark Tower itself, he does not have the power to stand up to those entities.
Right. And even no, King wrote the Gunslinger like so long before he wrote any of these other things. And Nort being resurrected takes a minute and takes some extra out of the Man in Black. So these other things, like he can change his face, he gets taller, he's here, he's there, he's moving through magic doors, no problem. But when it comes to bringing Nort back from the dead, it was like, okay, I gotta spit on him a lot and jump over the table, and like it was a whole production needed to do that.
And also, I can't remember if he slept with Sylvia Pittston before or after that. I know we hear about it after, but I feel like he might have slept with her before. And we do know, especially in the Gunslinger itself, how powerful sex is when it comes to magic. And that there was some sort of transfer of power between those two because they both seemed more powerful afterwards. So I'm wondering if that's sort of like he was able to boost his magic temporarily by having sex with Sylvia Pittston. I don't know, though.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that opens up a whole new show about sex magic.
Yeah. There's a lot of that in this series as well, between, like, actual mortals and then also, like, the incubus and succubus, and, yeah, it's a lot.
Yes, and for those of you who don't know, this is ancient wisdom. It's not just like in a Stephen King book, but like there are current practitioners who you can buy books about how to enhance your inner aura, inner magic. If you want to do spells or this kind of thing, like you can, according to them, supercharge your energetic body through practicing all kinds of sexy things. And that makes total sense. So we just figured that out. That wasn't even in the notes, guys. Okay, so I think that was all of the excerpts, which is good because we're at an hour. So let's kind of wrap up. Any other like final thoughts from Wind Through the Keyhole?
The one thing that I noticed was that I really find it interesting that none of Roland's quartet, like, hearing the story, explicitly ask if if the Covenant Man is the Man in Black, and I don't know if it's just because it was like so obvious to them at that point that it didn't need to be spoken, or what. But I do find it interesting, especially because like it is definitively confirmed by King both in the foreword and in the text, but it's not something that our quartet mentions.
Right. And everybody could be like, well, he doesn't have to say everything. But in other parts of this series, he does.
Yeah.
And it is, Jake asking a question or Eddie asking a question to try and figure out what's happening. Who is this? Looking for some kind of refinement of the situation. So it
Mm-hmm.
does happen quite often in other parts in the story. So for it to not happen here, I think it's notable. So we're
Yeah.
noting it.
Yeah, I don't think it necessarily changes anything. It's just an interesting note.
Right. And that could have been another way King clued us into it, is by doing it through his characters.
Hmm.
But he did it in other ways. And we picked up on it. What did we miss, everybody? Did we get everything and win through the keyhole? Felt like a lot for saying,
Yeah.
like, I don't think there's that much in there, but there's a lot in
Yeah.
there.
I think, I mean, just because he is such a central character to it, even though it's sort of like, again, like we get in the foreword King saying this before the story even starts. So we didn't have to go through and include all these things. We could just say, yeah, it's the same guy and like move on. But I think that the dissecting of it is really interesting and brings a lot of different like points that and nuances that we wouldn't have gotten otherwise.
Yeah, I think that's right. Um, Man, there was just something I wanted to say about that. Um, I lost it. Ooh, I mean, it's too much for my brain to actually hold on to.
Yeah, it's a lot.
It's a lot. Um, oh, I know what it was. And I saw this in, I didn't think of this on my own, I have to confess, because I would sound pretty smart if I did. I saw this in I have like the Kindle edition and you
Mm-hmm.
can search it, which I do all the time. And I ended up in the book club questions at the end. And one of the questions was, this is, this is a fairy tale. And yet Roland is telling it using the Man in Black as a main character, as the bad guy. And they're kind of like, why would he do that? And I thought that was just an interesting kind of like pan out and get out
Mm-hmm.
of the story for a minute and just be like, oh yeah, like we're reading this like, oh, it happened, but it is framed as once upon a by. This is the fairy tale that my mother used to tell me when
Yeah.
I was a little boy, kind of thing. Let me let you respond to that if you have
Um,
any thought.
yeah, I think that it could be one of two things. It could either be read as, yes, this was for sure the Man in Black in this fairy tale because he is timeless, he is ageless, and he could have been there in these, legends along with Marilyn as like a black magician. And it also could be that Roland was a boy when Martin came into the picture with his family specifically, and I could see the boy Roland superimposing Martin himself as the villain as he's hearing this story from his mother, just because that's kind of what kids do, that when they think of bad guys like in a story, they're obviously making connections to people in their life or people in other stories. So it could be that Roland himself is like superimposing that image of Martin onto this fairy tale because that's how he pictured him growing up. And I think that both readings are valid, honestly.
Yeah, we don't know for sure. I like to think that these things actually happen because that's fun.
Mm-hmm.
That's a little more fun than the psychological thing, the psychological equation. But both work,
Yeah.
and it's kind of irrelevant to the point of like King actually wrote the whole thing and he put the guy in here. It
Right.
wasn't even up to Roland at the end of the day. So there you have it. That is the Wind Through the Keyhole, the Man in Black showing up throughout in ways that we recognize and learning some new things about him as well. We'll come back again. And I don't know how much we'll cover. At least Wolves of the Kala next time. Probably, I always say it and then I regret it, but like Wolves doesn't have that much in it. And we already have the notes, so we know it's not too much. So maybe Wolves and Song of Susanna, we'll see. But we're not in a rush. We got lots of time. So we'll come back when we come back. Thanks for listening, everybody. Thanks, Ash, for all of your wonderful commentary and thoughtfulness around the show.
Thanks for having
anybody
me.
that's here. We'd love to hear from you. What did we miss? Tell us what you want to, episodes you want us to do. We're into that kind of thing as well. And until we meet again, may y'all have long days and pleasant nights.